Good evening, Eugene. How are you?
I'm great, Jana. How are you tonight?
Great, great. We wanted to get together tonight and let the public know what's been happening with the media and the media's response and reaction following the whistleblower interview we released about 1 month ago. And following the release, it immediately got about 1 million views across all platforms. We had, it's still up on YouTube. It's on the naturalwomenscouncil.ie website. It has been taken down off Facebook because of the censorship and the fact checking done by no one other than journal.ie. But we decided with this that we would hold the media to account and go through the complaints process to see how they handle the complaint. And we've done a couple of complaints so far with a few more to go. So from a complaints perspective, we've learned through the media experts and some media lawyers who reached out to us that there's two different complaint paths depending on how the media has been presented, whether it's through the press, which goes through the Press Council and the Ombudsman, or whether it is through a broadcast. And we've done the first two complaints, which happen to be under the broadcasting authority rules. So, and now broadcasting, which used to be under the BAI, just to make things even more complicated, is through the new group, which Eugene, you probably can pronounce it better than me, Kanishnaman or whatever the Irish name is, which really is.
Yeah,
Yes, yes,
yeah.
it's really a censorship organization is what it looks like. So we can pull up the first complaint and just walk through so people can see what we submitted to NewsTalk. So this was the NewsTalk episode that was back on October 3rd in the afternoon, and Norma Foley was on NewsTalk, and she went on to state that the whistleblower interview was false in her own words. And the host also went on to say that it was false. And you can see that here what we've done, we won't cover all of the points. It's quite lengthy. It's several pages long. But under the Irish statute book, we reviewed all the different statutes, and we feel that this complaint falls under harm, offense, incitement, and authority of state under 46J of the Broadcasting Act of 2009. Also, Code of Standard Program Standards, it violates that, and News and Current Affairs under 46L, and the Code of Fairness, Objectivity, and Impartiality in News and Current Affairs. So the statement that we made, and I did one for myself personally, and also we did one for the Women's Council. So this one is the Women's Council, that this broadcast that was done by NewsTalk and the host, Kieran Cudahy, where he had Norma Foley on, was harmful to the good name and reputation of the Natural Women's Council and our supporters. We feel that it will likely stir up hatred against our organization and also people supporting our campaigns in the event that the public actually believes NewsTalk and believes that we're spreading misinformation. That would be very harmful to us. It also, by allowing the public to believe the interview is misinformation, it misleads the public, particularly parents of school-aged children. We've had hundreds and hundreds of emails following this broadcast from parents asking if it is real and they want more evidence, which we have provided to them. And the presentation of highly sexual content and pornographic material to children is a grave concern to the public. It must be corrected as a matter of urgency. We will post this as well on our website for everyone to read the details. But Kieran Cudahy ended the interview by saying, "I don't think the message could be any clearer. It's complete misrepresentation. You're better off to ignore it." So right there, he slandered the Natural Women's Council, the whistleblower teacher, and myself, implying that we are spreading misinformation and we are guilty of misrepresentation. So we'll go to the next slide here. It just goes on to state more and more evidence. We won't read through it all, but more and more evidence that the video and the interview we produced was absolutely factual, and we stand by it 100%. And on page 3, we provided additional evidence in relation to the DCU course. We also provided the 4 Gript articles that came out. And we did also state that there's harm, offense, incitement, and authority of state under 46J. So, this broadcast is harmful to us. Showing children the materials as suggested on the DCU course would also be a crime. So it would potentially, by dismissing it, continue to cause this crime by showing children this information. And it goes on to state as well that there was an issue with the code of fairness, objectivity, and impartiality in news and current affairs. So one thing to note as well is with NewsTalk, we texted them in on their text number. We sent a WhatsApp message, an email, and we also called them twice. So we made 5 points of contact. And when we called them twice, I spoke personally to the studio, explained the situation. Twice they refused to put me through. I got confirmation they did receive the WhatsApp and the email and the text message. So 5 points of contact. They absolutely refused to let us on and have our view and defend ourselves and the information we put out. So they only let Norma Foley on. And then, of course, the broadcaster stating that we were misrepresenting. So that does violate the code of fairness, objectivity, and impartiality. And at the very end, we just, again, we want NewsTalk to rectify this. We've submitted this complaint. They did not rectify. They did not acknowledge their mistakes they were made. We want them to have us on the show to make our statement, to clarify information for the public at the same time, on the same show, with the same amount of time that they gave Minister Norma Foley, so we can present our statement of facts and our counter argument to the public. I did, at the end of the letter, we stated that NewsTalk, you must start to fulfill your obligations as a public broadcaster. So grassroots groups like the Natural Women's Council, made of volunteers who do not get paid, do not have to work tirelessly to present facts to the public and clean up the mess of your biased propaganda. So we sent this 5-page complaint into NewsTalk. And we also sent one into RTE. So we'll just pull up the RTE one as well. If you want to add that one in, we can pull that one up. It's very similar. It has a few different points in it. In addition to NewsTalk and RTE, we do have 3 complaints we'll be submitting to the journal.ie and also one to the Examiner, going through the press council with that and their complaints process. So this one here is RTE. And this was a broadcast that happened on the 11th of October. And again, we reviewed the statute book. We laid out exactly what part we feel that they violated. And this was one where the presenter, Sarah McInerney, had a guest on her show. It was RTE Drive Time, and her guest was David Gilbert. They led the public to believe that the whistleblower teacher interview that was facilitated and shared by us was misinformation. The interview was very inaccurate, unfair, unbalanced, not objective, and it lacked impartiality. We feel very strongly that it's harmful to the good name and reputation of the Women's Council. It's also likely to stir up hatred against our grassroots organization and the public who support us. So we went on to state that, Sarah opened the conversation. For anyone who hasn't heard it, if you want to listen to the interview yourself on the Drive Time playback, Sarah opened up the conversation asking, was this just another example of the sort of misinformation that is amplified by the far right in the US? So that was misleading. We're a grassroots group. We aren't linked in any way to the US, and we don't get any funding from the US. And then it just went from bad to worse in the interview. It went, I'll just go through some of David's comments. David Gilbert, who writes for The Vice and another rag, I think it's at Wired or Unwired or something. He went on to state that the interview was posted by a group and was taken wholesale from the US and has been a major narrative for far-right groups. He said that the so-called whistleblower interview video was actually posted by a group that is not too dissimilar from Moms for Liberty, that it's operating here in Ireland and run by an American woman. This statement is false and misleading. As an American woman in Ireland, I founded the Natural Women's Council. It's clear he's stating the information is about me. But I wanted to clarify to Sarah McInerney and to RTE that Natural Women's Council has no affiliation to any group outside Ireland. And also, David went on to say that people are just being fed a diet of conspiracies and hate and disinformation, and that the information environment now is so toxic and so polluted. I think that's really interesting that RTE being sort of gaslighting the public, stating that we are being toxic and we are polluting the public and spreading hate and disinformation, when actually our information is the facts. RTE has stated it's misinformation when it's actually them spreading it. So that's quite hypocritical, the irony of it all. And Sarah said at the end, she said, "Oh, they're not going to believe the facts that they get elsewhere as part of the problem, as you say, because of the mistrust." So what Sarah McInerney went on to convince the public is that any facts outside RTE shouldn't be trusted. Anything elsewhere, to make sure you just listen to RTE. So we wanted RTE to know that neither Sarah nor her research team contacted the Natural Women's Council or myself for a right of reply or a statement in relation to the content of the interview or the guest commentary. So this is not good enough for a public broadcaster. RTE got 725 million euros of our public funds, and they are misleading the public. This topic is a matter of public controversy and debate, and RTE surely didn't deal with it fairly. It wasn't objective nor broadcast in an impartial manner. So we do wish to hold them to account and go through the complaint process. We provided them as well with all the new evidence as well that's come out, and what rules they broke for their own rules they have to follow under the Broadcasting Act of 2009 and the Code of Standards. And we reminded them that their audience is entitled to trust that the news and current affairs content that they access from the broadcast media is accurate. Accurate information enables citizens to participate more fully in a democratic society, and that the information discussed in this broadcast is of great public concern, and that Sarah McInerney failed to present them in a fair, impartial, or objective manner. So we are requesting that RTE invite a spokesperson from the Natural Women's Council onto the broadcast within the same show and the same time slot, with the same amount of time as given to David Gilbert, so we can present our statement of fact and counter argument to the public. And the same way that we reminded NewsTalk, we reminded RTE that it shouldn't be up to grassroots groups like ourselves, who don't get paid, to present facts to the public and clean up the mess of their biased propaganda. So we'll see how they respond. The way the complaint process works is, if they deny our complaint, then we can go a step up and report in the next step of the complaint process and keep seeing it through the process. So we were advised by the media lawyers that reached out to us that most people don't see the complaints through. They run out of steam because they're dragged through the process. But rest assured, we want to let the public know that we are going to see this through. We spent the weekend writing the complaint letters, the rights of reply, and we will absolutely see it through to the end, because we feel that we owe this service to the public to make sure that the truth can get out and the mainstream legacy media can't continue to lie to the public, gaslight the public, and slander and defame good people who do tell the truth. So more to follow on that. So anything you want to add on that, Eugene?
Yeah, no, I think the only other thing to mention, I suppose, to any of our listeners, is that we're probably going to do a session with the whistleblower, Mary Creedon herself, to go through some specific details, which she didn't really get to cover in the video itself, but we think are very important, and they should not be lost on people. So we will have a follow-up on that.
Absolutely. So Mary will provide more evidence, and anyone who wants to look at Gript Media's articles, we provided a lot more evidence to Gript Media. And most recently, there was a recording that came out, which did have a teacher talking about how she did bring in those topics into the classroom. And she said something about, it's nice that you can get dirty with students, or students can get dirty in the class, or something to that effect. It was absolutely horrific listening to it. So more and more evidence has come out. We can absolutely stand behind everything we presented, and any parent questioning the whistleblower interview can continue to read all of the evidence, and we stand behind it. Another thing that's coming up as well, very exciting, is our first Parents Unplugged podcast will be coming out over the weekend, where we have 6 parents around the country who are going to be speaking out. So we'll just see how media react to the voice of the parents. Will they continue to slander those parents, to discredit those parents, and say that those parents are lying? We'll keep bringing on parents every week, and I think really we're going to prove really who's telling the truth and certainly who's not. So Excellent. Well, that's all for now, and we'll keep you updated on the rest of the complaints once those are finished and submitted to the press, the journal.ie and the Examiner, and any other ones that continue to say that we are spreading misinformation.